Hey, everybody. I hope and pray that you're doing well today as we come to our word from the Word. And today, that word is sense. Sense. Now, I'm not talking about like you sense something, but something that makes sense. Now, put that picture there with that dog. If you ever see your dog hear something, they kind of cock their head to the side and give you that strange look like, do what? Or what was that? Now, having said that and having thought about that, when you hear something just doesn't make sense, what do we do with that? Well, here today in Mark chapter 3, we see that Jesus is in the synagogue and there is a man who is sick. There's a man who's in need of healing, and he asks a question. And I kind of get this impression that now Jesus ends up getting angry. You'll see, and with this, I can almost see him looking at them, almost turning his head, thinking, "What is wrong with you?" You say, "Well, okay, well, what is this about?" Well, let's look into Mark chapter 3, verses 1 through 6. And he entered the synagogue again, and a man was there who had a withered hand. So they watched him closely, whether he would heal him on the Sabbath, so that they might accuse him. And he said to the man who had the withered hand, "Step forward." Then he said to them, "Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill?" But they kept silent. And when they had looked around at, and when he had looked around at them with anger, being grieved by the hardness of their hearts, he said to the man, "Stretch out your hand." And he stretched it out, and his hand was restored as whole as the other. Then the Pharisees went out and immediately plotted with the Herodians against him, how they might destroy him. Now, if you read this in context with the previous chapter, and then you also understand that as Jesus is saying these things, and he's there in the synagogue, he has already said that he is Lord of the Sabbath. That he was always going to be Lord of the Sabbath, and so as he is challenging their thoughts, challenging their discernment of the law or their interpretation of the law, he says, "Well, do you think it'd be okay for this man to be healed?" Now, just think about that question. You have the Pharisees here that are looking, watching him to see if he's going to heal. Notice they didn't question whether or not he could heal. I think that says a lot. The fact that they knew he was able to heal, they were just looking not to accuse him because he was a healer, but to accuse him because he was going against the Sabbath. Now, in their minds, let's this is the only break I would give them. In their minds, like Saul, who turned into Paul, right? Saul of Tarsus, they thought they were doing the right thing. And remember, it took a Damascus road for Saul to get on the right path. It took an intervention of God. Now, here they have God Himself, God in flesh, in front of them, but they would not listen. And even to the point that when He asked them a question, they didn't want to be pinned down to anything. They wanted to be like politicians today and just speak out of both sides of their mouth, or just say, "Well, I'm just going to remain silent on that issue so you can't pin anything on me." And I believe that silence is what really got him angered, what really didn't make sense to anybody. How could it not make sense to be healed on the Sabbath? How could it not make sense for the God of all creation to heal on the Sabbath? What it all boils down to is that they wanted Jesus to fit into their mentality. They wanted Jesus to fit into their little box. And anytime Jesus wanted to do something that was outside that box, outside what they thought was right, they completely shut it down. And I think too often today, if we're not careful, we'll find ourselves, yeah, it may not be with somebody being healed of a withered hand like that just in front of our eyes. But I think if we're not careful, we too will put God in a box and say that He's not able to do something, or whatever day of the week it is, whatever time of the year it is, whatever season of our lives that we're in, we'll say, well, God can't do anything now. God can't fix this situation the way I want him to fix it. And if he does do it, well, I'm going to be upset that he didn't fix it the way I wanted him to, or in the time that I wanted him to. See, all of those things, just as sure as what the Pharisees didn't say, how that didn't make sense. When we think that we can put God in a box, that also does not make any sense. Today, let's make sure that our head knowledge, doesn't get in the way of our heart knowledge. Let's trust in the Lord today with all that we have and with every single situation that we face. God bless you, and I pray you have a great, great day.